Today on Woodworking with Wes, I'm going to introduce you to the new belt sander I bought. It's a 4x24 Wen belt sander, and it's a very versatile tool. The nice thing about it is you can turn it upside down and mount it to your bench, or use it as a handheld belt sander. I'm going to show you a few of those features, show you some options, and I'm going to show you how I would use it and some of the tricks that you can make this a very handy tool in your shop. I was very pleased with this Wen belt sander. One of the things that I like about a bigger belt sander is the weight. The heavier a belt sander it is, the less you have to work and the more work it does on its own just by its weight. I always like a heavier belt sander. It just makes my work a little easier. This has a dust collection port that can be hooked up to your shop vac or a little bag that comes with it. I'm going to use the bag for our demonstration today. This little button right here is tracking. As you roll it back and forth, you can track your belt so that it stays where it's supposed to. A quick release for change of belts. That makes it nice and convenient. Easy trigger and a nice handhold. This is a very comfortable sander to use. I also like the size. Like I say, nice and heavy, easy to use, comfortable to hold on to. Let's show you one of the things that I use a handheld belt sander for in the shop that you will find very useful. It's a little trick that I've learned over the years. Let me show you how it works. One of the things that you're going to want to be able to do is to sand the saw marks off of the edge of boards. Now, I've learned over the years that it's very hard to hold your sander and do one board at a time. And so I came up with this little trick on my own. I cut a couple of spacers that are lower than the height of the boards that I do. Then I'm just going to go through here and mark the edges of the boards that I'm sanding. And I've clamped them together. I take my belt sander and I sand across all three of them at the one time. Now see how my belt sits on top of all three boards at the same time? By doing all three boards at the same time, you can see how I took off my pencil marks, but by having all three boards go at the same time, I was able to keep it flat. So I made a good flat sand on the edge of my board, taking off those saw marks, but still keeping my board nice and square. I'm going to show you one other little part of that trick. Take your clamps off of both ends and rotate your boards so that you rotate the positioning of them. Then reclamp. And what that does is it just makes the sanding that you do in a different position, and so it makes sure that you haven't put an edge on one or the other on the outside edge. Okay, nice edges. The saw blade marks are all taken off, and we know they're good and square because we've done three at a time and held our platen flat with our belt sander. So it's a great way to sand the edges of your boards. One of the places you're going to use a belt sander most often, or I should say the place where I use it most often, is sanding the edge of a hardwood piece that goes to another piece of veneer. Now, I have nailed this little facsimile together, and I used melamine because it will show the difference real easy. I've nailed this board on so that it's a little bit above my melamine surface. I've puttied my line, and I've also drawn some lines across it. When I belt sand, what I'll do is I'll make sure I hold it nice and flat on top of my board, move it back and forth, and I'll pay attention to my marks and to my putty line, trying to make sure that I sand this good and flat without sanding through a veneer. If this was a veneer sheet, the last thing we want to do is sand through the veneer sheet by not keeping our belt sander flat. So by learning to hold it nice and flat and using our pencil marks and our putty as an indicator of how deep we're going, we can do that and make sure that we have a nice sand and use it to our advantage. Let's go ahead and get started. You can see how I've already started taking off the marks off the top of my board, but I'm not down on my putty yet, or my other marks on my veneer sheet, that this would be a veneer sheet. So let's keep working on that. And you want to keep moving it back and forth. You don't want it in one place. You don't want to rock it side to side. You want to keep it nice and flat and move it back and forth. Okay, you can see some of the putty starting to disappear here. See how we're getting down it, but our line is still there, so that means we're not sanding through our veneer yet. We've sanded away the putty, so we're getting very close. We want to make sure that we're sitting as flat as we possibly can, so we sand both the veneer and the end of the board. We don't want to have it beveled like this either. We want to have it nice and flat. So let's keep working it a little bit. Okay, we've sanded away our putty. We're starting to sand away our marks. Now, the white melamine, the finish on a white piece of white melamine is much thinner than veneer. It's just a paint thickness, where a veneer actually has some wood thickness to it. I've already started to go through the white melamine here a little bit, but I've not taken off my pencil marks, so that means I really haven't gone too deep. I've done it just the way I wanted to do it. Moving it back and forth, making sure that I'm nice and flat. I've got a nice flat area here. Let's keep moving a little bit. Now, if I was sanding a piece of veneer, you saw me move over to the middle of the board. I would be sanding over to the middle of the board a little bit on a piece of veneer, making sure that I, again, kept my sander very flat and sanded very carefully. I've gone through the paint here, but like I say, the melamine surface is much thinner than a piece of veneer, so I haven't gone too deep. I would have not gone through the veneer on this piece. Let's turn around here. Do it on this side again. Same thing, you can see that I've taken away the pencil marks, but I haven't gone through the pencil marks on the veneer piece yet, or gone through my putty. I will tell you one thing you want to make sure you do is don't put on too aggressive a belt. Sanding belts come in many different grits. I have a 120 grit, which is not very aggressive, so that I can sand very carefully and keep an eye on, make sure that I don't go through my veneer. If this was a veneer sheet, this would have been a perfect seam. It's nice, tight, smooth, and I didn't go too deep. So I wouldn't have sanded through the veneer. Even though I sanded through the melamine, like I say, the melamine paint surface is much thinner than a piece of veneer. This would have been a perfect seam right there on a piece of veneer. Then I would come back and sand the face of my solid piece. With the belt sanding all done, I would be ready for my finish sanding and any routing on the edge that I would do. This is one tool that you'll become more proficient at the more you use it. So every time you get a chance, take a chance, use it, you'll enjoy it. And we'll see you next time on Woodworking with Wes.